I think I'm wearing the same shirt I'm worn in like 3 past videos. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and my name is Honey. Listen, I post a lot of crap on my YouTube channel, and you know, it's gonna happen as I discover my niche, discover what I really want to hone in and focus on. But this is also one of my interests, and I do consume true crime, but I mainly do it in my mind to feel like I'm educating myself and honoring the people whose stories are being told, which is why I try to watch like respectful content creators. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm sourcing them a lot for this video. But Crime Junkie is my newest obsession, and also Kendall Rae. I have liked her for years and years and years. Those two I think are respectful, nice. Kendall especially, she always gets like victims' families involved, and is a lot of why I learned about these cases in the first place. Obviously I haven't done like deep dives, and I'm not as thorough as other people, but these are just some cases that, you know, I've been invested in that I think need people to talk about them more, and I want to talk about and discuss with you guys. If you've never seen in my link tree, actually I have a whole YouTube playlist of true crime cases that are still active that you can check out, look at. Yeah, this is gonna be more of like, not like a lighthearted video like I normally do. I think it's important and I'm interested in it, so I want to talk about it. So I recently revisited this first case by listening to Crime Junkie's podcast on it, but I had learned about it from Kendall Rae, I think about 2 years ago. I forgot how insanely obvious, to me personally, how insanely obvious this case seems, and the fact that there is no justice in this case. These are all missing person cases, technically. For Angela, I do believe that she's no longer with us, but she's still considered a missing person until her body is found. And the fact that this is not covered more, like I looked this up on TikTok, right? And I saw her niece, who's like a big like person in her story, like I saw her TikToks all on there, but like the true crime content creators on there was like 2 of them who posted about it. And this is like crazy to me, because once you hear the story, you're gonna be like, why isn't this all over the place? I genuinely don't know. I don't know. But like I said, this case is crazy, so we could talk about it for hours, but you know, I'm gonna plug Crime Junkie again. I'm gonna talk about them a lot. I'm so sorry. Listen to Crime Junkie's episode on Angela's case. It covers it extensively. And they have audios and stuff from different people in this case, and extra details I don't have time to show here. Our story starts with Angela, who was born in China. She met her future husband, Jeff Green, while he was working in China. And when he went back to his home country in the US, the two maintained a long distance relationship. But finally in the 1990s, she came to the US on a fiancé visa. Her sister had already moved to the US, and that's where Angela and her niece Michelle kind of got closer, because Angela came to the US and moved in with her sister. So Angela and Jeff get married, and it seemed like Angela was kind of becoming more isolated after finally marrying Jeff. Crime Junkie reports that her wedding day was kind of like solemn and had a weird feeling about it. She became even more isolated as her daughter, Ellie Green, was born. She was barely leaving her house, and she ceased most contact with Michelle and her mother, Angela's sister. Angela didn't have many friends, and she didn't have any activities outside the house. She was financially dependent on Jeff, and she didn't have a bank account of her own, which is kind of important to note. Ellie eventually grew up, and she committed to the University of Kansas, and Angela was not happy. She was really protective of Ellie, and she didn't want her to leave and go to school far away from them. Ellie left on a study abroad trip, and she didn't tell her mom. And when she came back, they got into an argument, and Angela ended up kicking Ellie out of the house. So she went to stay with her boyfriend. But this is where the case gets crazy, and in my opinion becomes a mix of half-truths and lies spun by Jeff. So Jeff tells Ellie a couple days later that he checked Angela into a mental hospital against her will. But this is where it gets even crazier. He said that he had people ambush her and take her in a grocery store parking lot to the hospital, which makes no sense. I can't see a mental hospital being okay with having their staff ambush someone in a grocery store parking lot. Like, what? Okay. Jeff wouldn't allow Ellie to visit her mom. He never told her what hospital she was at, and he claimed it wasn't safe because she had gotten violent the night that they had fought or whatever. But Jeff tells Ellie that if she were to tell people about Angela's commitment, it would be like embarrassing for them. So he tells her to keep it a secret, and she does. Mid-July that year, however, Jeff tells Ellie that her mom died from a stroke at the hospital, the mental hospital. Again, Ellie's like, what hospital? Let me go see her. And he doesn't tell her anything. And then he insists that he needs time to process things. So Ellie shouldn't tell anyone. So she doesn't. I mean, it's her dad. Like, I totally understand, like, wanting to trust him in that. But then February of 2020, Ellie called her aunt and finally told her that Angela had died. Her aunt was shocked and contacted Ellie's cousin, Michelle, who we talked about earlier, and she's now a lawyer. She wanted to see if Michelle could kind of dig in, find a death certificate, find anything that could help them get better clarity on what happened to Angela. Kind of side note, Michelle has done great work for her aunt's case, and I truly commend her for her fight for justice for her aunt. So Ellie and Michelle eventually submit a records request for Angela's death certificate so they can, kind of get her affairs in order. But the state of Kansas tells them, get this, that there is no death certificate on file for Angela. What that means is either the hospital that she was at had some medical malpractice type of things and we're just keeping Angela there and not submitting a death certificate, because why would they do that? That makes no sense. Or Angela's death was never recorded or reported and no one knows where she is. So then Ellie files a missing persons report right after, which very smart. But then Michelle calls a welfare check on Angela and Jeff's residence. But when the police get there, Jeff explains that Angela isn't dead, apparently, and she just had left and now he has no way of contacting her. How convenient, Jeff. He told the police that he didn't even say Angela was dead and that her family was making all of this up. His own daughter was making all of this up. The officers kept trying to get an explanation out of Jeff, and eventually he stopped cooperating and got a lawyer. Which, obviously, I don't judge people in cases like this for getting a lawyer because that is the smart thing to do. But I'm just saying, he stopped cooperating. There's no paper trail for her case. There's no death certificate. There's no hospital paperwork. Jeff is now saying she didn't even go to a hospital, so there's no hospital to investigate. Her keys and wallet and phone were all left at home, and it doesn't even matter what she would be allowed to take into a mental hospital because that's been thrown out. She left all of those things. Then how did she leave? All the clues that could point to the truth in this case aren't there, unfortunately. There's no evidence that she's alive, but there's also no evidence that she is dead either. No hard evidence. They thoroughly searched through Jeff's properties and the land around them, and absolutely nothing ever came of it. Michelle doesn't believe her aunt is still alive, and search efforts are unfortunately but realistically being focused on recovering a body rather than a missing person. I'm not a legal expert, and of course, someone is innocent until proven guilty in the court of law, and you need to have enough evidence to prove them guilty without a doubt. But this summer, they tried Karen Reed for a second time, and I feel like that case was so obviously not enough evidence to convict, and they still prosecuted her. But in this case, if I were on a jury personally, allegedly, and heard all the evidence, I would probably side with the prosecution. I think what has stalled this case is a lack of a body, lack of evidence that isn't circumstantial. I think everyone who's heard about this case leans a certain way, but prosecution is waiting because of double jeopardy. But the reason why they tried Karen Reed, if you didn't know different things about the legal system, is that they were allowed to try her because her first case got thrown out because I forget why. It was something kind of stupid. Oh, I think they said that the jury was compromised and they knew different things ahead of time or didn't know something. I don't know. So because of double jeopardy, prosecution wants to wait and see if there's any more evidence. And if they do it, they want to do it right because chances are the first case won't get thrown out and they'll only have one time to prosecute. But it's frustrating when the answers seem so obvious, but the wait for justice has been more than 5 years in the making. Looking back at this, I was like, oh, it was only in 2020. That's 5 years ago, which is like, and the person who allegedly ended Angela's life could still be walking free and having a normal life right now and not facing the consequences. I can't even imagine being in Ellie's shoes, listening to your dad's story change like a million times. And he even said, like, oh, this was to protect you. I didn't want you to think that your mom abandoned you. Like, how was that protecting her? And listening to him lie, I can't even imagine. It's kind of like she lost both her parents, basically. My heart goes out to her and Angela's family. Realistically, what other possibility is there in this case? Really think about it. I don't see many. Like we said, she didn't have her own bank account. She left her wallet and keys and phone at home. I don't really see a world where she left on her own. And especially with the media and stuff that has come out, like Michelle, all of that, I think Angela would have contacted them. She was still out there and knew about this. So at the time of her disappearance, Angela was 51 years old. She is of Chinese descent, has brown hair and eyes. She weighed 116 pounds and was 5'9". She went missing in Prarie Village, Kansas, and her last confirmed sighting was on June 20th, 2019. If you have any information about Angela's case, contact the Prarie Village Police Department at 913-642-6868 or Crime Stoppers tip line at 816-474-8477. I love cruises. I've been on 3 and they have been so relaxing and a great way to explore places that you normally wouldn't go to. But as we've seen from the recent norovirus outbreak on, I think it was Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, I don't remember. The Carnival Poop Cruise, they don't always go according to plan. But what is crazy to me is someone vanishing from a cruise ship, which I haven't looked into it, but apparently there's a bunch more cases than this case about people who have disappeared from cruise ships, and that's genuinely horrifying to me, who goes on cruises. And this person seemed to disappear without a trace. In this case, I personally feel like there's a high chance that Amy is still out there and the right people just need to talk. And this is so funny because when I was doing my research for this, I was like, oh my gosh, why is there like a bunch of new interviews and articles out? It's because Netflix did a documentary on it. So there's going to be a lot more people talking about her case. So I'm excited about that. And again, if you want to go down a rabbit hole in this case, which you can do, listen, there's lots of things like the sightings, the people who saw her on the boat, apparently on the island. There's so many things that I will not cover in this that you could go down a rabbit hole with. When I sit here and talk, she likes when I talk. So when I sit here at my desk to film, he like comes up and just stares at me. Amy Lynn Bradley was on the ship Rhapsody of the Seas belonging to Royal Caribbean with her family, her parents and her brother in March of 1998. Like I said, it was Royal Caribbean and it was sailing out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. On cruises, you have a bunch of ports of call, your itinerary for the amount of time that you're on the ship. So their first stop was island of Aruba. The cruise was 7 days. Amy was excited and this was a bit of a celebration for her because she had just graduated, got a full-time job, and was continuing to get her master's degree that fall. They had a great day at Aruba, and the night after, Amy and her brother Brad were seen dancing and clubbing at the ship's nightclub. Along with her brother, Amy was seen dancing with the ship's bass player she had befriended, named Alistair Douglas, and his nickname is Yellow. And there's even a video of them caught by the ship's marketing team. Brad and Amy weren't together the whole night at the club, mingling and mixing with other people, as you should be on a cruise. I kind of just sit in my room and read. But to each their own, right? The ship itself was docking at Curacao for their next stop. And that night, they returned back to their cabin, and her dad, Ron, awoke to see Amy on the balcony area of their room where she had been talking to her brother not that long before. Now, there's been conflicting reports whether or not she was sleeping or just sitting there. If she was sleeping, I can kind of see the thrown overboard theory that we'll get to. But if she wasn't, I wish we knew definitively, and maybe they'll talk about it in the Netflix documentary, if she was sleeping or if she wasn't. But anyways, he sees her there and then he goes back to sleep. But he gets startled awake by something at 6 in the morning from what he doesn't remember. And he looked outside and didn't see Amy. And he looked in her and her brother's room and didn't see Amy. She disappeared in the early hours of Tuesday, March 24th, 1998. Her shoes were left behind, but her cigarettes and her lighter were missing. The crew and her family began a search on the ship, but didn't alert any of the other passengers or crew because Royal Caribbean said that they didn't want to freak them out. To me, hiding a missing person would freak me out more than telling me that there's a missing person. And turns out, despite saying they would search, all they searched were common areas and bathrooms, which you don't even see half of the cruise ship when you're just a guest. There's always the crew areas, the back areas. You don't get to see any of that. Despite Amy not being found, the ship continued its desired route. They let everyone off the ship without questioning, without searching thoroughly, which may have led to Amy slipping through the cracks. Royal Caribbean messed up big time. I don't know if there was any lawsuits. I didn't look into it. But if there was, I hope they got paid so well. Royal Caribbean leaves her family to look for her on their own on Curacao, which they caused by letting everyone off the ship and then saying, oh, she might have gotten off. No shit. You're the ones who would let her get off. They have her family just stranded on Curacao and tell them to find their own way home. It's crazy that I don't know why it shocks me that these companies do not take a second to care about human life over profit and staying on schedule. I don't know why it shocks me every time, but it does. The Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard, which was in charge of the water that the Rhapsody was sailing on, insisted that Amy must have gone overboard because she was sitting on the balcony, possibly while she was sleeping. So I would like to know if she was sleeping or not. When questioned, Yellow said that he saw Amy at 1 a.m. when they had a drink together, which from the footage that Royal Caribbean took was not true, and he saw her at 3 a.m. Some people reported that they had even seen Amy and Yellow drinking together around 5:45 a.m. and entering the nightclub again. Yellow was interviewed, but they never had enough evidence on anyone to glean anything about where she might be. There was an alleged picture of Amy sent to her parents from an adult website based in the Caribbean. The woman looked like Amy, and looking at the picture, it does look a lot like Amy. And she was positioned in a way where none of her tattoos and identifying marks would be showing. There have also been alleged sightings, mostly in Curacao, which was where the boat was docked at the time of her disappearance, according to Fox News. The Bradleys and many others believe Amy is alive and is and was a victim of human trafficking. Alistair Douglas was confronted by his daughter for the Netflix documentary, but he has stated his innocence, as he has this entire time. To me, falling over does not make sense. I've been on cruises, like I said, and you could sleep out there safely, in my opinion. The last time I was on a cruise, I had a panic attack so bad that I had to go out on the balcony and sit there for like an hour or two. So I totally understand her wanting fresh air and spend time out there. And if they were sharing a room, it's not really clear if they were or they had different rooms. With 4 people in a cabin, it gets so claustrophobic. I've been having weird claustrophobic feelings recently. It can get real claustrophobic real quick. So I don't think that that's weird she was out on the balcony or would have been resting out there. All of her pictures that the cruise line had taken of her the night before, they were all gone. You post them up on the walls. Well, that's what they used to do. Now they have slideshows that go through, but they would post them up on the walls and have people buy them. They were all gone after they were taken of Amy, and the photographer says that he remembers putting them up. All of that combined with what we talked about, I really do believe she was unfortunately trafficked. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $25,000 for information leading to the discovery of Amy Lynn Bradley. Amy disappeared off the Royal Caribbean ship Rhapsody of the Seas on March 24th, 1998. She is believed to be in the areas of Curacao or even Aruba. She was 5'6", 120 pounds, with brown hair and green eyes. She would be 51 now. She was 23 when she disappeared. She has 4 tattoos, a Tasmanian devil with a basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a gecko on her navel. She also had a navel piercing. If you have any information on the case, however small, you can contact your local FBI office or submit an anonymous tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Or you can contact Amy's specific tip line set up by her family on amybradleyismissing.com. This last case is tragic in a different way. I consume a lot of true crime, as I said. But this case, and all my years in being invested in true crime, I've only encountered one piece of coverage about it. And that's because this case took place on the day of Sherry Papini's case in almost the exact same area. And that's a whole rabbit hole that I could cover. And if you want me to cover, I would totally totally talk about it, but I feel like everyone's covered it. There was recent coverage on Sherry's case, actually, because she started doing interviews again and recently came out with her own documentary. But this case has had so much less coverage and information than that case, a fraction of it. It's hard to do a timeline or an outline of the case like I did in the past too, because all anyone really has is just scattered pieces of information. And just a fair warning, most of the sources I have for this one are either old or social media posts, so if I get things wrong, please correct me and let me know. This case is about Stacey Smart. The last confirmed sighting of Stacey was during a housewarming party on October 15th. Stacey's family believes she went missing on October 16th, the last day her debit card was used. Up until the 2nd of November, when she was reported missing, her family kept trying to get in contact with her and they left notes on her door. They weren't too worried though, as Stacey was said to be free-spirited and was known to get away from time to time. At the time of her disappearance, she was living with her boyfriend, Tony Brand. After the housewarming party on the 15th, a neighbor reportedly heard the couple fighting. Shortly after Stacey went missing, Tony suspiciously had all the carpet changed in his home, and he told the family that he thought Stacey had moved out instead of the fact that she had gone missing, and that's why he had never bothered to say anything. It's important to know that Stacey had trouble walking and driving due to past injuries, so her just skipping town seems unlikely to those who knew her. Like most cases, there have been reported sightings and tips. The most interesting one that I heard of was one of Tony Brand's friends saying that he said to them that he put Stacey, quote, somewhere. But almost 9 years later, none of these leads or tips have panned out to give the police anything substantial. Given the conflicting stories, I believe Tony Brand had something to do with her disappearance, allegedly. Or he knows something that he hasn't said. There's no evidence showing that she would have left town or committed suicide. I mean, she had a loving family. At the time of her disappearance, Stacey was 51 years old. She had blonde hair and blue eyes and weighed 180 pounds and was 5'8". She has a tattoo of a red lotus on her lower back. She went missing in Lewiston, California, and her last confirmed sighting was November 2nd, 2016. If you have any information on Stacey's case, contact the Trinity County Secret Witness at 530-623-8138, NorCal Alliance for the Missing Anonymous tip line at 530-378-4491, or Trinity County Sheriff's Department at 530-623-2611. Unfortunately, there is so many missing person cases. If you did like this video, I would do another one. Spread the word, especially if you live in any of these areas that I talked about. Lewiston, California, NorCal, Aruba, Curacao, any place in the Caribbean, honestly, you should look for Amy. And Prairie Village, Kansas. And all the links for the sources that I got, because I felt like I was doing an essay, but it was actually enjoyable, but I felt like I was doing an essay because I kept basically a works cited document along with this. It'll all be listed in the description, and the numbers for any of the police departments that I mentioned will also be in the description. I don't really know how to end this video. Stay safe, keep your eyes open, stay vigilant, and my crime crusaders, I will see you in the next one. Bye.